It's a good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millzy, back with the hometown commander. Back for another episode of Millzy Brews, the show where, per our usual arrangement, or I hope will be our usual arrangement, I brew a deck for you. You come along for the ride, enjoy it with me. Hopefully you give me your opinions down in the comment section. Today's video is going to be really fun. So as a green player, there's a lot of things I love in this world, mainly just turning creatures sideways. But as a green player, I knew that there was going to be 3 tribes that I had to build over my time in Commander. The first was werewolves, and I've built it a couple times, and it's a deck I truly enjoy. It's just hard to get that dial exactly correct. Elves, which I don't necessarily have a problem with the elf tribe. I'm trying to find a way that I enjoy elves. Yeah, I feel like that doesn't need to be expounded upon. And Merfolk. So we're doing Merfolk today. Man, as a person who loves Ixalan, mainly the Dinos, but I've always liked the Ixalan Merfolk. I've always thought it was an interesting deck. Plays on an archetype that has lots of support outside of Ixalan, but Ixalan, I think, gave it some really cool support. I was always looking for a way to build Merfolk. And, I had all these ideas in the back of my head. I considered it, but nothing ever really, to be honest, nothing ever really like changed my mind. Nothing, there weren't many cards that came out that made me say, okay, this is what's going to drive me to brew a Merfolk deck. But I'll be 100% honest, other than the amount of +1/+1 support that's come out over the last little bit, which is great. Don't get me wrong. There's been a lot of great support for that. The 2 new cards that we got from Dominaria United are honestly kind of exactly what I think Merfolk needed. And I think that they're going to push Merfolk forward, especially the Simic Merfolk list with Kumena. And so it was kind of honestly that last catalyst I needed to brew a Merfolk deck. Of course, the 2 Merfolk that I'm talking about, first off, Vidalian Hexcatcher, 1 in a blue, flash. Other Merfolk at +1/+1. Sacrifice a Merfolk, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. So, a lot of our cards that were... A lot of our Merfolk and a lot of our Merfolk support either makes Merfolk tokens or we're going wide, right? The whole purpose of Merfolk is go wide, +1/+1 counters, go tall, swing in, and beat your opponents down. What I like about Hexcatcher is this is as long as we have enough Merfolk, we can counter the spell. Fun news, guys. You can do this more than once on a spell. If you're really that worried about a spell going off, someone plays a Psyker, if somebody plays a giant spell and you need to get rid of it, you can sacrifice more than 1 Merfolk to target that spell multiple times. No, once you target it the first, once it resolves the first time, the other ones will just fizzle away. But remember that this is something we can repeat as long as we have enough creatures. And it costs us literally nothing besides sacrificing a Merfolk, which I think is going to be something that's going to be very easy to do in the deck. And the other one is Emperor Mihail II. I'm not entirely sure who Emperor Mihail I is, but that's okay. It says you can look at your top card of your library at any time. We can cast Merfolk spells from the top of our library. That's perfect. And the reason I like this is because 2 of the most popular green creature tutors, being Worldly Tutor and Sylvan Tutor, both put creatures on top. So if we have Mihail out and we use one of those tutors, we can play that Merfolk off top of our library without having to draw it, although we will have no issues in blue-green drawing cards. And then its second ability says whenever we cast a Merfolk spell, we can pay 1. If we do, we make a Merfolk token. So this is great because Merfolk tend to be very small, cheap creatures. And as long as we have that extra, spoiler alert, we're probably going to. We're in Simic. We're going to play a lot of ramp. We're going to play a lot of great card draw and things like that to make sure that we always have lots of mana open. Hopefully we can use this to kind of gain us that advantage, make us those extra tokens when we cast our creatures. The other part of this is it's a 3/3 for 3, so we get this whole ability on a 3/3 for 3. Only downside to Hexcatcher is it does say other Merfolk, so Hexcatcher will not get the buff, but that's okay. Let's talk about our commander. Let's talk about Kumena. If anyone from Wizards is watching this, pretty please, can I get a Teamer Merfolk commander? If I had a Teamer Merfolk commander, I could blow this deck out of the water. I have so many great ideas, so many other lists that I've done in Teamer, and I think it would make the deck even better. But I don't want to I don't want to say that to make it seem like I'm discounting the good that is Simic. This color combination can do a lot of really great things. And Kumena honestly really helps us out. It says tap another untap Merfolk you control. It can't be blocked this turn. So we can go the commander damage route if we want to. But the bottom two abilities are what's more important. Tap 3 untap Merfolk you control, draw a card. Because we're tapping them with Kumena's ability, we can tap creatures that came in this turn to do it, and we can also tap them at instant speed, which is really great. Tap 5 untap Merfolk you control, put a counter on each Merfolk you control. This is where Kumena gets very good. You go wide on the board, keep your guys up to block, and on your last opponent's end step before you turn them all sideways, put counters on, and start ramping and running. So, there's two ways I want to go with this deck. Tribal and +1/+1 counters. I think this is the obvious way to go. We'll add some trample. We'll add some other things like that. But clearly that's where we're going to go. How I'm going to do this episode, I try to do some of these every now and then because I want to show you guys how to brew. For those of you that have never are new to brewing decks and you don't brew that often, I want to show you how to use EDH Rec, and it's fun to brew off EDH Rec. We always, of course, want to have our own ideas and things like that. Some people discount brewing from EDH Rec because they say, oh, you're just net decking or you're just taking ideas from the internet. But I think the good thing about EDH Rec is it's going to end up introducing you to cards you've never seen before, and that's really important for our format because our card pool is deep. It is really big, and you are guaranteed going to see something on EDH Rec you've never seen before. It happens to me all the time. So here's what I'm going to do. I empty searched Merfolk into Skyfall. I'm going to go through, the first page or two. We'll talk about some of the Merfolk I think I want to add in. Just because it seems pretty fair. I'm going to add some token and +1/+1 support, and then we're going to go over EDH Rec and finish it on out. All right, so let's go. Merfolk. We have to answer the big question in the room. No, I'm not going to play Thassa's Oracle. I know I'm going to get comments that say, but Millzy, Thassa's Oracle is such a good card. Sure, you're right. It's a good combo card. It doesn't belong in a Merfolk tribal list. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. I mean, could I pay it off? Sure, but I would much rather pay off value with, for example, something like Tadiova, which is just going to continue to give me value, even though it's a pretty expensive Merfolk, rather than Thassa's Oracle. So Tadiova is exactly what I want to do. It's pretty expensive as far as Merfolks go, but we're literally in one of the best color combinations for landfall. So why not throw this in here, because it's literally an engine on its own. And Kumena will make it bigger with +1/+1 counters. I have no problem spending 5 mana on a Tadiova, especially if it's going to give me that value. Next up, Theming Skydiver. This card is really interesting because when you kick it, you can take someone's artifact. You can take a crypt. You can take a soul ring for just one into the kit, because kit can't be 0. If someone has a big artifact like a Cage Sun or one of those massive artifacts that's just giving them value, we could take it. There's a lot of things we can do with Theming Skydiver, and even just for 3 mana, I think it's still worth it. The only downside is we have to kick it to play it from our hand. So if we play it from anywhere else, or we get it onto the battlefield another way, we don't have to, right? But we have to kick it if we're going to play it, and I think we're going to run into we're going to very rarely run into a situation where we don't want to use the Skydiver, at least to take someone's Soul Ring, or an Arcane Signet, or a Mana Rock, a Chromatic Lantern. There's so many Mana Rocks out there that are great that we don't mind taking. World Shaper is an interesting card. Whenever it attacks, you mill 3, and when it dies, return all land cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. We'll put a pin in World Shaper. I don't know that it's exactly what I want. I think I want to try to keep my Merfolk a little bit lower on the CMC scale, because I think we want to go wide, which means we need to be dumping them down. And I just worry that we won't get the right return for World Shaper. Kiora's Follower is exactly what we need. Our commander cares about tapping permanents, specifically creatures. So Kiora's Follower could be the difference between getting 1 extra mana in for a spell or untapping something to block. You never quite know what you can do with Kiora's Follower. Triton Shorestalker is something we're going to see a lot of, a couple, I believe. Merfolk who cannot be blocked. So as soon as they get big, they're not blockable. But we can add on to that with Herald of the Secret Streams. Creatures control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked. This is going to pay off a win for this deck. We're going to dump this down, and we're going to attack. Love the idea of Cold Eye Selkie. Whenever it does come a damage player, you draw that many cards. This could be good to help refill our hand, keep our engine going. We get access to arguably one of the best partner commanders in the game in Thrasios Triton Hero. This is a card that can basically scry off the top of our deck, help us with drawing if we have way too much mana, and of course putting land onto the battlefield, which is pretty cool. Otherwise, we just draw a card, which is pretty cool. Mistcloak Herald, again, can't be blocked. This is exactly the route we want to go. So I really like Mistcloak Herald in this sense. Okay. Prime Speaker Zagana is a little bit more expensive than I want to play with, so I think I'm going to leave her alone. Varel the Hallclade seems pretty good. Allows us to double number of each counter on artifact, creature, or land, which means if we have a pretty big creature, we could double it. It would potentially pay off a Kumena Voltron plan if we really wanted to go that route, but I don't think we do. I think we work a lot better going wide. We have Thada Adel Acquisitor. That's that word. Hey guys, that's a word. Just coming damage to a player. Search that player's library for an artifact and exile it. That player shuffles until the end of turn. You can play that card. This is just good because we can steal mana artifacts. You could still spell big artifacts, things like that. The only downside is it doesn't let us cast it for mana of any color, but hopefully if we're picking an artifact, we're picking something that's colorless. Should be a problem. Stony Book Banneret, Merfolk and Wizard spells you play cost 1 less to cast. The Banneret cycle is kind of interesting. I have a feeling it'll be of some use. I can't promise it'll end up in the list since most of our Merfolk are going to be pretty cheap anyway. But I think it's worth considering. Merfolk Windrummer, just a little bit of mill, which I think will be nice. It will help. It's not necessarily the goal of our deck, but it definitely will help. Master of Waves, I love the idea of, but I think it plays more into an elemental deck than it does a Merfolk deck. So I'm going to I'm going to keep a pin in that if we find out we need more. Spoiler, I don't think we will. I mean, the Merfolk tribe is pretty deep when it comes to a lot of good cards. So Master of Waves belongs more in my Omnath Elementals deck, for example, rather than here. Tishana, one of the other popular big Merfolk commanders. Its toughness are equal to the number of cards in your hand, no maximum hand size when it enters battlefield. Draw a card for each creature control. Again, love the idea of it. I'm going to try to keep down on the scale. I would much rather play something like Master of the Pearl Trident. All Merfolks we control have +1/+1 and have Island Walk. Man, I wish that we had... There's plenty of reasons why one shouldn't exist, but I wish we had a Yavimaya or an Urborg for blue for this deck. Yes, I know that there are some Merfolk cards that give target land the island type, and believe me, we'll play those because we have so much Island Walk at our disposal. But if we had an Urborg for blue, I mean, it would make this tribe 100 times better. So really, really like that. Merfolk Sovereign, other Merfolk get +1/+1, and we can tap to make a creature unblockable. I really like that. Marrow Regeri, the Merfolk you control get +1/+1. When you cast a Merfolk spell, you may tap or untap target permanent. This is great because we can kind of play around with lands. If this is down and we cast 2 or 3 Merfolks, we may be able to untap enough lands to play another one. So I really like that. Seafloor Oracle, whenever a Merfolk you control does combat damage to a player, draw a card. We're going to come back to something like this. I think we have enchantments we can play that are going to make this a little bit easier of an effect than this. But I like the idea. I like the idea of that. Kapala, Warden of Waves. Spells your opponents cast that target a Merfolk you control cost 2 more to cast, and abilities your opponents activate that target a Merfolk you control cost 2 more to activate. Perfect. I know Kapala is a good commander in its own right for mono blue Merfolk. I think might get eclipsed by Mihail for being the best mono blue commander, or one of the best mono blue commanders for Merfolk. But slam dunk in this deck. Merfolk Skydiver, when there's a battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and then 5 mana proliferate. It's a 1/1 for 2, and I think it fits our go wide platform. Civilian. I have no idea. I just know this is the Merfolk god. Has indestructible as long as you control 2 other Merfolk. When it attacks, draw a card. Other Merfolk we control have Ward 1. Great. Ward is just going to help. Marrow Commerce. At the end of your turn, untap all Merfolk. We get a Seedborn Muse for 2 mana for Merfolk. Guys, do you understand why this is so... Man, every time I look at the Merfolk tribe, I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are just broked. Lord of Atlantis, another +1/+1 an Island Walk. A buffer, and believe me, guys, your opponents play blue more than you think they do. So that's going to be great. True Name Nemesis, we're just going to avoid as much as it's a good card. Zagana, Utopian Speaker. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another creature with +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. You get to adapt for 4. And each other creature you can have the +1/+1 counter on it has trample. This is where I want to be on the top end. Something that's going to come down and is going to turn trample on for our entire board. This plus giving everything a +1/+1 counter just helps us in the long run. And I think Zagana is what I'm willing to do on the top end. Bolus getting us instant or sorcery seems kind of interesting. I think I'm willing to flirt with that idea. Whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may put a 1/1. Tap 7 untapped Merfolk you control, counter target spell. I've literally never seen this before. I'm interested in it though, but I've never seen it before. Merfolk Trickster, whenever it enters the battlefield, tap a target creature an opponent controls, it loses all abilities. I think it's still good. We can even do it on our turn, so I kind of like that. We get a Merfolk Searcher. We'll see how important that is. I mean, we have a bunch of great search targets in green anyway, so we'll see how important that is, and if not, if it is, we can come back. Each other wizard you control comes with a player threat. Well, I don't know how many of the Merfolk are wizards. I haven't been paying attention to that. The answer's been enough of them, but 3 mana just seems... But that +2 to get a counter to draw a card seems good as well. So I'm talking myself. I love that I comment on a card. Like sometimes you read a card and you're like, this seems not very good, and then you talk yourself into the card immediately after finish reading it. I just find it hilarious. Harbinger of the Tides. You cast as though it had flash if you pay 2 more to cast it. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target tapped creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. A little bit of protection for attacking, which seems interesting. Tempest Caller, taps down all creatures target opponent controls, which seems interesting. A little expensive. Merfolk Mistbinder is exactly what we got. Again, another buff. Deep Channel Mentor, 6 mana blue creatures you control are unblockable. Interesting. I just wish, I mean, it's a good thing. It needs to be 6 mana. If this was 2 mana, it would be broken, right? But probably a little more expensive than I want to spend. Deep Root Elite, perfect. Whenever another Merfolk enters the battlefield, put a counter on target Merfolk you control. This would allow us to spread the counters around. And that's perfect. And here's another one of the big guys we're going to use, Wanderwine Prophets. Champion of Merfolks, when it comes into play, we have to sack it unless we banish another Merfolk. When it leaves play, return that card to play. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we can sack a Merfolk. If we do, take an extra turn. If we can get counters on this, give it trample, attack the right players, we may never let our opponents untap. And 6 mana is not that hard in this color combination to get down. This will be one of our top end cards, kind of like a Tadiova or a Zagana, where they're just going to kind of be those cards on the top end that push ourselves through. Silver Coil Adept draws us a card, which is kind of interesting. Foreigner of the Wilds searches for a Merfolk, which is kind of interesting. Here we go. We have a Merfolk that once we level up, we can draw it to loot, or when it goes a little bit bigger, it can draw. I mean, that's kind of interesting. We have Benthic Biomancer. We can adapt it, and then whenever one of our counters we can draw and then discard, we can loot. This seems kind of interesting. It can also be a trap. We don't want to loot too much, but I think it could be really good. This is a free counter unless the opponent plays 1. This could be really good. You know, you got to be careful sometimes in Commander. People don't always completely tap out to play their spells, but I think this is still pretty good. Search Spanner. Don't see anything good there. Okay. We'll keep going down this page. We'll add them all in, and then we'll talk about +1/+1 support, and then we'll rock over to EDH, right? Because I have a feeling that other than, I mean, the ramp I can figure out on my own. The +1/+1 counter support, I probably know most of it. It's just going to be the oddball things that I'm probably not going to know about because I've never built a Merfolk deck before. Jade Light Ranger is one of my favorite cards to mix on. It explores, meaning you look at the top card of your real top card library, you can put it to your hand if it's a land, otherwise you put a counter on it, and then you can either put it back on top or put it in the graveyard. This is great because it gives this creature a +1/+1 counter, or the option, the shot at 2 of them when it comes in, which is great. And then we're probably going to play something like, although it's a little expensive, we probably want to play Path of Discovery, which is the same explore effect, but for every creature that enters the battlefield. So even tokens. So that's going to be really good. River Sneak can't be blocked whenever it enters the battlefield. Whenever the Merfolk enters in, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So if we go wide on some creatures, it can sneak through for some damage. Wake of the Wild's kind of interesting. Again, a little bit more usable in that kind of words apparently in that more landfall type deck. We're not going to do that as much. Shaper of Nature, putting counters on, we have a lot easier ways to do that. There's a Hexcatcher. Branch Walker just explores ones on its own. I think it's worth it. We may actually find out that there's plenty of other cards that do what we want to do for cheaper, and that's perfectly okay if that's the case. What you're going to do with every anytime you build a tribal deck, you're going to find out that you start off with about 40 tribal creatures that you really want to play, and then we're going to cut it down to about 28. So I don't feel bad putting these extra cards in because I know that I want to take the best 28 or 30 of them anyway. Why not throw in some more options? Deep Root Champion gets +1/+1 counter every time we cast a non-creature spell. It's a really good idea, especially if we get it early. If we get it late, then it's a little dead. We have our other Tattoo Over for 3 mana. Can make lands into creatures. Doesn't seem like a bad idea. Especially if we get some counters on those creatures, then they could potentially become unblockable or other abilities that way. Kumena Speaker just goes into a 1/1 to a 2/2, so that's really not all that viable. And I don't really see anything else that I love. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and run through and add these in. Is it Sky Scout? Oh, Skydiver. I'm really excited to brew this deck and try it out, mainly because I just really like the idea of +1/+1 counters, and I've flirted around with some other decks that care about them. Like, for example, my Teamer Elementals deck is an elemental tribal deck that has a little bit of +1/+1 synergy. Not a ton of it, but I mean, it has enough of it because Omnath puts counters on creatures when it comes in. But what I like here is we can pay off all of the fun +1/+1 counter cards because this is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to stack up tokens. We're trying to do things. And we've gotten so much more support, especially with Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, added the modified mechanic, so we can use things like Silk Guard to give all of our creatures hexproof as long as they have +1/+1 counters on them, which I think is going to be really cool. That's going to lead to some fun synergies. I guess in a world where you don't care as much about the tribalness of this deck, you could add the newest Kodama, who gives all your creatures with +1/+1 counters on them trample, and then you can go get basic lands whenever you deal damage. That could be a really interesting route to go. Again, I'm going to try to keep mine as words today, guys. I'm sorry, as tribal as possible, because I think tribal decks are really fun. Not only that, but I think they keep a theme which is something I kind of enjoy when I can. And a lot of the reason for me wanting to brew this is, one, because we get to show off some fun. We get to show off some fun cards from Dominaria United, but also because this is a deck that's going to get some more support in about a 9 or 10 months time when we go back. When we go back to Innistrad, when we go back to Ixalan. And I'm really excited about going back to Ixalan, mainly for new dino support, because we haven't seen any in a very long time, and I love my dinos. That's a deck that I look forward to it's been a long time since I've taken a look at it and updated it, so I'm excited to update it with some of the new support we've gotten over the last year or so. But I'm excited to see if we get another dinosaur commander. I love Gishath, and it's a ton of fun to play with. It's a fun deck. But I think it'd be really cool to see some other sort of dinosaur strategy that doesn't have that doesn't deal with with Gishath, or if we get another mechanic other than Enrage. So very interested about that. But I really would love to see Merfolk come into a third color. I know we have seen some white Merfolk support, which I'm not saying that white Merfolk support is bad. In fact, that would be one of the choices of colors that I would pick for Merfolk, given the choice. I think I would much just prefer red going into Teamer, just because I think there's a lot better support for things, and so many of your spells just get better. Things like Jessica's Will and some more really just support all around. So I would love to see that. Okay, we've got 37 creatures, but it's probably going to end up being too many. But let's add in some cards we think we're going to use. First off, Hardened Scales. We want +1/+1 counters, and if we tap Kumena with Hardened Scales out, it's just going to add 1 to each of them. So that is really great. Doubling Season. It's an expensive card, both in mana cost and in price, but it's going to be a very cool top end to this deck. And if we're ramping as hard as we're going to ramp, we're not going to have any problems getting there. Branching Evolution. Doubling the amount of +1/+1 counters that would be put on creatures. And the cool part here is, let's say we have a Hardened Scales and a Branching Evolution out, and we go to put counters on a creature. The way the replacement effects works is we get to choose the order they're applied. So what we would do is we would probably add the one with the Hardened Scales first, and then double with Branching Evolution. Same thing with Doubling Season. If we had Doubling Season and Branching Evolution, obviously we would just double it twice. But any of these combinations, you would basically get to choose your order you want them to resolve in. So this is just going to allow us to maximize the amount of counters. A card that I'm excited to finally use in a blue-green deck to good avail is Hadana's Climb. Gain combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature control. Then if it has 3 or more counters, transform it. On the backside, it becomes a land where we just get an extra land. Or for 3 mana, we can give a creature +X, where X is, and flying until end of turn, where X is its power. This could power up a big creature and get the ball rolling. Let's go into Ramp, Farseek. Rampant Growth. Cultivate. We're going to play a lot more basic lands because we have the ramp for them. 3 visits. Nature's Lore. One of my favorite new cards to play is Into the North. It goes and gets Snowlands. Snowlands could be a way we go. And the cool part about Into the North is, even if we don't want to run Snow Basics, there is one dual type Snowland that we can go get with Into the North. Now, I'm not going to leave Into the North in there and not probably play Snow Basics at this point. I just think getting another ramp source that's on a 2 mana ramp spell is just really good. It just adds another 2 mana ramp spell. Now we're up to 7 ramp spells, in like 2 or 3 mana that we're going to hopefully see every time quickly. I really like Growth Spiral. Again, another 2 mana card draws us a card, and we can play a land from our hand. I think we play Explore as well. You can play an additional land this turn, draw a card. Okay, we'll add our command tower. And we need to be a little bit more selective about what dual lands we're actually playing. I think we want the Hinterland Harbor. Might as well play the Dream Cascade. We can do the Flooded Grove. I think we do want a couple of the Cavern of Souls-y type lands. Although we're in blue-green, we're going to play a lot more basics. I think Cavern of Souls is still really good. I don't mind the idea of Path of Ancestry. We just end up might actually cutting it for something else. I really love the pathways. I'm trying to remember the name of the pathway for blue-green. I can see it in my head, but I cannot remember the name of it. Bark Channel, there we go. Still worth playing. I mean, you could argue that a basic might be better, but I don't mind playing a few other lands. And then I'm going to be a little bit degenerate and use some Urza Saga. You don't have to use I like to put Soul Ring and Crypt in my builds. I know a lot of people don't like them, or Crypt specifically. You should always put Soul Ring in your deck if you can functionally use it. But if you don't like Mana Crypt, that's fine. You don't have to use it. The main reason I want Urza Saga in this deck is for the Ozolith mainly. Urza Saga can go get the Ozolith on its last ability, which is going to end up being really good for us. We'll use the Arcane Signet. And then I've been trying my best to use the Signets and the Talismans in my decks, just to see if, in my 2-color decks, just to see how much they actually do as far as benefits. So we're going to do the same thing here. I want to see if the Talisman ends up adding to our benefits as far as that goes. Okay, we got a good subset of lands. I mean, the rest will probably just end up being forests and islands. We'll put these up to like 11 each. I'll go a couple more. Those numbers will change for sure, but we can just throw them in there as placeholders. I mean, we're pretty close. Sorry. Guys, come on. You were supposed to remind me. Instance. We can't go. We'll use something like Brainstorm. It's a blue staple. We got to use it. Psych Rift. We want our. I think we do want as many. We do want a couple creature tutors. We got Worldly Tutor, and then I have a Sylvan. I have a Sylvan Tutor as well as those. It's not that important as far as tutors go. Don't mind Sylvan Library here, just to help us get some more cards off the top. I know there's a ton of things that I'm missing, and that's okay. More often than not, that's why I like going to EDH, right? Because it's going to remind you of cards that you can't think of. Not sure what we're going to end up having for removal. So I'm going to add Pongify, Rapid Hybridization, and a Reality Shift. These are all creature removal spells in blue. Pongify and Rapid both destroy, and the opponent gets a 3/3, and then Reality Shift is our Exiler, and then Beast Within can destroy any permanent. So we're just trying to kind of get this kind of a mass of removal. We have the Cyclonic Rift to bounce, and we can potentially look into more bouncing if that's something we want to do. But okay, I mean, I'm pretty content with what we figured out so far. So let's rock on over to Kumena's EDH rec page. So if you don't know, I'm just going to do a really quick PSA here. If you go to EDH and you're looking to build a deck around a certain theme, there's a themes tab and a tribes tab. So for Merfolk, we can come down to Merfolk, and it's going to give us all of the most popular Merfolk commanders here. So this just shows you what your options are for Merfolk. And of course, we clicked on Kumena, which is how we got to this page. Now, if you're interested in seeing any of the other types of ways that you can build Kumena other than +1/+1 counters, it does this right here. Also really quick, and something I advise you do from time to time, if you click on any of these links, it will open up other people's decks under that commander. So this is kind of cool because you can go in and see what people are building. So what I normally like to do if I'm building for myself is open up 1 or 2 deck building sites worth of people's decks. I'm going to get my list kind of accumulated. Then I would go and just see, hey, is anybody playing any cards I didn't think of? Okay. We see some combos here. I don't really care as much about the combos, especially because I'm pretty sure Dramatic Reversal only says non-land. I guess it does say non-land permanents, which would allow you to tap all non-land permanents. So it would actually allow us to untap all of our Merfolk. So that's actually probably something to consider. What is Sigil Tracer? It's a Merfolk. We can copy instants and sorcery spells. Or wizard. We have to tap wizards. Okay, kind of interesting. And then the Ice Hound Corruptor on the top. Okay, we'll put something like that on the back burner. I don't know that I don't think it's necessary for the deck, but I'll keep it on the back burner. All right, perfect example here. Deep Root Waters. Whenever we cast a Merfolk spell, we make a 1/1 token. That's perfect. And if we have a doubling season or something like that out, it's going to double the amount of tokens we get. We see the Sovereign, we see the Rajiri. So it looks like we're on the right side. They're playing Seafloor Oracle for that effect where if we hit a player, we draw a card. We can think about something like Bread for the Hunt if we want to. Instead, which might actually end up drawing us more cards. But we can come back to that. I just realized that I want to add Simic Ascendancy, one of my favorite alternate win con cards. It says whenever you put 1 or more +1/+1 counters on a creature you control, put that many on Simic Ascendancy, and then if it has upkeep, if it has 20 or more, you win the game. This is going to be probably really easy to get going in this deck. But anyway, we'll keep Bread for the Hunt on the back of our radar as well, because it's kind of the same thing as Seafloor Oracle, but on an enchantment. Okay, we see the exact same things we saw there. Foreigner of the Heralds is a creature. But it just puts it on top. I think I'm good to keep going, as much as I think I definitely see the interest in it. We have Counterspell, which probably makes a ton of sense. We're in blue. It's not bad to run a counter or two. I put Fierce Guardianship in there, but having the Counterspell, probably not a bad thing to have. Okay, let's go into the creatures. We see the Seaborn Muse there, which actually makes a ton of sense, mainly because of Kumena's tapping. It makes sense to play something like Seaborn Muse because it would untap all of our creatures. And so maybe that's why the Dramatic Reversal combo might make some sense. But okay, well, that's something where I'd say if that's something you're interested in, if you're interested in that kind of untapped shenanigans, I would say go for it. For now, I'm not going to. That's something I can always add in later. Realmwalker seems really good. It's a shapeshifter, which means it can be a Merfolk, and we can play Merfolk off the top, which just seems like a really good thing so that we can keep cards in our hand. Sea Hunter lets us pay 3 and go get a Merfolk of our choice and put it into play. That seems like it could be decent, especially when it comes to getting some of the Merfolk like Herald of the Secret Streams and things like that. That could pay that off, so that seems kind of interesting. We're seeing a lot of the same. Metallic Mimic actually might make a ton of sense. It comes in, we call Merfolk, and then all of our Merfolk, even the tokens, come in with counters. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense as far as what we're trying to do. I'm sure there's probably some other good Merfolk here. I just feel like we're probably at the top end of what we can actually support. So we're going to keep going. Love Heroic Intervention. This is exactly what we need. Giving all of our creatures hexproof and indestructible. I'm not sure how many actual counters I'm going to play. I'd kind of like to focus a little bit more on ramping and going down that route. Let's add the Dramatic Reversal in, mainly because it works so well with... That combo works so well with Kumena, so I think it completely makes sense. The other cool part about Ice Crown Scepter is worst case scenario, we could put a ramp spell on Ice Crown Scepter if it came down to the worst case scenario and just get a piece of ramp every turn. So I like that idea. Simic Charm. Permanents you control gain hexproof until end of turn. interesting. We already got the Worldly Tutor, and then we got the Brainstorm in there. Quandrix Command was something I thought about, but I thought it was going to end up being a little too expensive. I love the cheeky wash away, but I think we've got plenty of other good spots that we need to fill up. Don't hate the idea of Double Major, just because it could copy our commander or something like that. That would be something to consider. But let's move on now. We got Cultivate, Harvest Season. Harvest Season could be really good because we're trying to tap those creatures for Kumena, and this would incentivize us to play a lot of basic lands. So I kind of like the idea of Harvest Season there. Okay, this is kind of what we want out of this is what I was talking about making our opponents' lands into islands so that we can island walk. Aqueduct's Will seems like exactly what we want to do. Target the right opponent's lands, make one of them an island, and then proceed to be able to attack for free. Distant Melody makes a ton of sense. I'm just worried we're probably not going to have to worry too much about drawing, but we'll figure that out. Triumph for the Hordes. I doubt we'll need a finisher, but we still need to play one. We do not want to just assume that we can get through it without a finisher of some sort. Actually kind of interested in Neoform. Neoform basically lets us sack a creature and go get one with equal to 1 plus that's cost. And I feel like a lot of our Merfolk go up the chain. You know, we could sack a 1 for a 2 or a 2 for a 3, and we're playing a lot of them. So I think Neoform might actually make a ton of sense in this deck. We've got Ponder and that kind of thing. I feel like it's worth playing some of it, but we'll figure that part out in a second. See, Biden of Thassa was my thought for kind of a replacement for that one Merfolk, but I don't know that I love it as much as now. I think the card I much prefer here is Throne of the God Pharaoh. Beginning of your end step, each opponent loses life equal to the number of tap creatures you control. And if we have that untapper out, where we untap on other people's turns, that's going to be really great. Okay, Kumena is a shaman, so this can equip for free, and it would draw us cards. That's worth considering. This is a card that I play in Alayla and does a lot of good there. When the creature deals combat damage, you draw that many cards. Kumena is going to have potentially the opportunity to be unblockable. So I think World with the Archmagi could actually work out pretty well. The only downside is if it doesn't equip to a wizard, a warlock, or a shaman, it costs 4. But I think we have more wizards and shamans than we think. So I think this is actually going to end up being really good in this deck, more than we think. Pardon me. We have the Herald's Horn, which is an interesting idea. I just don't think we're going to need it with the amount of ramp that we have. That might end up being a bad idea, but I just don't think we're going to end up needing it. I think we're going to have so many other good things. The Great Henge is really expensive, but as soon as we get it down, all of our creatures come in with +1/+1 counters and draw us a card, which I feel like is exactly what we want. It just may take a little bit to get down, and so it may get stuck in our hand, but that's okay. Okay, and I think this is the card here that I was thinking of that's going to pay off all of ours. Beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts a flood counter on target non-island he or she controls. That land is an island for as long as there's a flood counter on it. Until end of turn, if all lands in player islands, remove all flood counters from them. So I like the idea of Quicksilver Fountain because it's going to pair with all of the cards we were trying to use before to push us through for damage. I like the idea of Stoneforge Master, where a creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature that shares a creature type with it. That could be kind of a left field card. This will probably sit in my sideboard. I doubt this is going to stick in the main board, but this is the kind of card I would love to test around with and see if it ends up working. All right, we get into the enchantments, and this is where I expect to probably find a lot of things I didn't think about. The first that I was thinking about, but honestly, I didn't think about it until we saw it here, was Cryptolith Rite. We can tap our creatures to add mana. This is great. It's going to push us forward. Quest for Renewal is probably perfect. Whenever a creature you control becomes tapped, put a counter on it. As long as there are 4 more counters on it, untap all creatures during each other's player's untap step. So you can start to see here the goal. Untap our creatures, use Kumena to tap them to draw cards or give them all counters, and just rinse and repeat. Reflections, Lit Jar, and Kindred Discovery are why I kind of didn't want to play that one Merfolk that drew us cards, because this draws us a card when it that draws us cards when we deal combat damage, because this one will draw us cards when they come in or attack, and this one will double all Merfolk we cast. The only bad part is going to be, hopefully we're not playing too many legendary Merfolk, and we can figure that part of the process out. But I think more often than not, this is just going to end up skyrocketing us up into the future. And then Growing Rights of Itlamok is perfect because it flips over into a Gaia's Cradle. Only for green mana, though, so we do have to be slightly careful. But I still think it's perfect. It's kind of interesting. Intruder Alarm. Creatures don't untap during their controller's untap steps. Whenever a creature comes into play, tap all creatures. I see the benefit there, but that's okay. We'll throw in the Heuristic Study. I know a lot of people don't like Heuristic Study, but it just does good work. Although I can see a scenario where we end up getting to the end of building this deck and realize we have too much card draw anyway and we don't need the Heuristic Study. But I would be a fool to not consider Heuristic Study. Is one of the single best blue enchantments in the game. Even if you only draw a couple cards off of it, it is massively good. I wish this was like 1 mana less. If this Aquatic Incursion was like 2 or 3 mana, it would be a slam dunk. But 4 mana for 2 tokens and then 4 mana to make something unblockable, I just can't see it. Beastmaster Ascension, though, I can see. This is the kind of thing that will help us end games. When we attack, we put counters on it for each creature we attack with, and when we hit 7, we get +5/+5. That matched with either unblockability or trample is just going to put us through for the win. So that's exactly what we want. Leyline of Anticipation seems kind of interesting. So Wilderness Reclamation only untaps on lands we control. That's kind of why I was thinking of Wilderness Reclamation, but now that I look at it, not as good. Master Chef. If Kumena's out, this would have all our Merfolk come in with the +1/+1 counter, but I think we're going to end up having too much trouble. Okay, Commanders love seeing Oko. I love seeing Oko there. Interesting. I'm sure there's probably something here. Like I'm sure there's probably something in here. I'm just not seeing it. Okay. Reliquary Tower might be important if we're going to be drawing a lot of cards. This is going to be something I think we put in for now, and then later we find out if we're drawing too many cards. Novision seems really good. Putting a counter on each creature that came in is going to give us a lot of good progress. Beseiju, I feel like, is an auto include in green. Commander can get rid of pesky things, artifacts, and enchantments. And believe me, that's going to be really important, especially when we're worried about people convoying off or something like that. Having this in our hand and being able to play it for only a single green if we have a legendary creature, it's going really good. I see the benefit of Alchemist Refuge. Being able to play our Merfolk with Flash seems kind of interesting, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that one. Otawara seems really good as well to bounce things. But I'm going to try my best to keep the lands that I'm playing outside of my basics to be really important, and Nykthos is one of them. The more stuff we have out, the better Nykthos becomes. I don't think we'll need Yavimaya, mainly because I'm just not all that worried about having the mana that we need. And I'm sure there are other great, like I can see the argument for Karn's Bastion, but again, I think I want to try to focus on having as many basic lands as I can to really take advantage of some of that ramp. Okay, Mana Rocks. We got a couple important ones. I love the idea of Thought Vessel, but I'd rather play Decanter just because it gives us that mana of any color. And we can untap this with the Dramatic Reversal. Ice-Crown Scepter Fun. Okay, so we'll get into our dual lands. I like the idea of Maya Coast, but I feel like we're fastly approaching the amount of non-basic lands that need to be relevant. Rejuvenating Springs is the one that I should play if I didn't think of that one. I'm pretty sure I had Misty Rainforest. Pardon me, I did not. So we'll throw that in there. That can go get either of the basics. And then I think I'm content there. All right, so let's add in our stack of last cards. I'm gonna work on everyone's favorite time of deck building, which is the cuts. So like I said, I am building this deck with the full intention of testing this. So a lot of the way that I'm going to make my choices on cuts is going to be to determine certain sub-strategies and then leave other sub-strategies in the sideboard so that we can test them later if we see some other strategies that become important. I even think that Decanter of Endless Water might even get cut. It seems kind of expensive, and I don't think we're gonna have that many issues with land or with mana. It's hard for me to not consider Rhystic Study. Just to be 100% honest, Rhystic Study is just one of those cards that helps almost every blue deck ever draw cards, and that's something that we don't want to discount. Cryptolith Rite just seems really good, especially if we can get our stuff untapped by other means. It seems like it'd be really good. Like I said, Stoneforge Masterwork will probably go right into the sideboard, but it'll be something I will keep in the back of my head. Did I spell Reflections wrong? English is hard, guys. It's hard to spell, especially not when you didn't just see the name of the card and you're literally exactly typing it out. Okay, I think if we're going to play a combo like Dramatic Reversal and that, then we need to play Mystical Tutor, I think, to go get any of our instants or sorceries if we need them. The other half interesting thing about Mystical Tutor here that probably people don't think about is the other cool part is if you, let's say on turn 2 or 3 or 4, you have an extra spare mana and you have a Mystical Tutor in your hand, we can do it with our ramp to either get another piece of ramp or go get another piece of ramp or go get anything else to help us set up. I wonder if is Pyro Heroes not being played because it's too expensive? Because it's kind of a recurable. Almost, if you think about it, it's kind of a recurable. It's kind of a recurable Neoform, but I think Neoform makes a ton of sense as well. It also is searchable on in blue on Mystical Tutor, whereas Pyro Heroes is also searchable on green or on blue. There is blue artifact tutors, so it'd be kind of interesting to see which we prefer. I'm not a giant, to be honest. I'm not a giant fan of running a lot of counters, just because I personally believe in just running advantage, but I think it would be dumb not to play a counterspell. I also think Mikey would be very mad at me if he found out that I was not considering counterspell in any deck that could play it. He's such an abuser. No, I'm just kidding. No, he's right. I mean, counterspell is a great card. I don't want to take away from counterspell. Okay, 136. Oh gosh. We're in for some fun, friends. You ready to do some cuts? Let's do some cuts, baby. Oh my gosh, I'm looking at the sorceries and instants, and I have no idea what to cut, so we're going to have to come back. Lands, we definitely do not need 40. Let's go down. Are there any of these that I want to cut? Let's cut Path of Ancestry for a lion. Pardon me. How's our split right now? Green pips 48, blue pips 70. So we're definitely blue over green. So let's cut the pathway for an island. Looks like we're probably just going to need to run more islands than anything else. But I like that. That's a pretty good mana base there. Okay, enchantments. We're going to have to cut some of these for sure. There's no way that we're going to be able to play 16 enchantments, especially not. Let's see. Beastmaster Ascension, yes. I think we can get away without the branching evolution for the moment while we're considering this, because we have Harden's. But does branching evolution make more sense than doubling season? Doubling season's really expensive, but it does both. I don't know. That's a good question. Growing rights, I think, is really good, but let's see if we have a better spot for other things. Kindred Discovery seems expensive. Maybe we can bring it back in, and once we get through this pile. I already like that a little better. I love these 3 cards, but the problem I think we're going to run into in this deck is this stack right here. This enchantment stack is going to be a lot of really good ones, and we're just going to kind of have to make the calls and go with it. So I think this is where I'm going to leave this for now. Instance, we probably can cut. One of either. I'm going to cut the Cell Intruder for now. I think we could probably cut one of the Pongifier Rapid Hybrid, but we'll get to that in a second. I don't want to do this just because I can Mystical Tutor into this if I really need it. Triumph, 3 visits, rapid growth, Neoform, Nature's Lore, Kadama's Reach. We might even be able to cut either Kadama's Reach or Cultivate. We do have a lot of them. I just realized we need to switch these to... almost literally only for the Into the North. If you don't want to play the Into the North, that's completely fine. I am going to, though, just because it's another 2 mana ramp spell, and believe me, 2 mana ramp spells are really important. I also don't mind going down on. I don't mind going down on the Kadama's Reach because we do have Harvest Season, and Harvest Season does have a chance to give us even more than Kadama's Reach or Cultivate. So it's your choice there. Like if you don't like the Ancient North, you could always cut that back out for the Kadama's Reach or something like that. But okay, 125, and a lot of that 25 isn't going to come from the creatures. So we'll cut the Masterwork. I think I'm going to cut the Decanter, and I'm going to cut the. It almost seems like the Talisman isn't really. The only thing I like here's the problem. Like Signet filters, Talisman gives you the extra mana. I almost feel like we don't even need Mana Crypt. Like I feel such sacrilege to say that, but I worry that we're not actually going to end up needing it, and I may come back on that later. But we're going to need more of the utility stuff like Ozolith off of Versus Saga. We'll probably never actually get Crypt off of it. I think I'm going to cut Roll with the Archmagi as well. Like Great Henge just seems like a slam dunk if we can get it down. Everything else here has a really good value. Okay, we're at 121. Oh yeah, this is going to get tough. All right, let's go through the creatures. We're at 40. I think we can shoot to be at about 28, 29. We have a lot of draw, we have a lot of ramp, and we need the ramp. So let's rock through, and we're basically just going to look into what we can cut. I don't want to cut Zagana because it gives trample, and I feel like trample is really important. Wandering Prophet seems like a trap, but I mean, if it hits once, it's really good. I'm not high on Varel. Like, I like the idea of doubling the counters, but I just see benefit everywhere else. Hexcatcher is really good. Shorestalker seems really good. Thrasio seems really good. The Skydriver. pardon me, thought Adele seems very good getting that artifact. I mean, I could be wrong, but let me cut it for now. I love both Tadiovas, but they could be a trap. They actually probably could be a pretty big trap in this deck, but we can come back to them. Seems really good to give them all Ward 1. Them costing 1 less to play seems really good, and it has baked-in Island Walk, which I feel like is really necessary. This is a tutor that go gets us anything. Sea of Fables lets us remove to draw cards. I feel like a lot of our merfolks are wizards anyway, but maybe it becomes less and less. So maybe Sea of Fables comes out for now. We have River Sneak, can't be blocked, that's great. Realm Walker lets us look at the top. Maybe we won't need that. Maybe we'll have so many already. Matok Mimic's perfect, this is good. Wind Robber's cheap and it has flying, which is why I want it. The Trickster, Folk Sovereign, Skydiver. Maybe Skydiver comes out. Although Proliferate seems really good for 5 mana. That's a tough decision. It is also 2 mana. I feel like Branch Walker may actually end up coming out of here. As much as I really like it, there's a lot of really good 2 mana merfolk in this deck, and it's tough to justify any of them over that. Lawmage Mentor just seems like a perfect card. We tap them to counter spells and no one's going to see it coming. And if we have our untappers down at the start of other people's upkeeps, we're literally going to be able to do this once a turn. Oh, so much of me wants to cut Lawmage Mentor, but I don't think I can. I think it just ends up being too good. Lord of Atlantis is good. It's a literal lord. It's a literal lord for our board, and I can't justify it. Kopala stops it all. Yeah. Still like Jade Light, still like Herald. Maybe Harbinger of the Tides isn't as cracked up as I like it to be. Out of curiosity, I wonder if how high up on Kumena's list. How high up on Kumena's list is Harbinger of the Tides? I see it. I see the benefit of it, but I'm looking at the rest of this deck and I'm like, there's just better creatures. Yeah, I think Harbinger of the Tides comes out. That feels like probably sacrilege in a Merfolk deck, but that's okay. Emperor Mihail, Deep Root Elite. Deep Root Elite I really like because it spreads the counters around. I think I'm off on Deep Root Champion. Curse Catcher, as much as I like the idea, I think I'm off on it. Cold Ice Selkie seems good. Benthic Biomancer just seems really good. But I think people are seeing a lot of benefit elsewhere, so I think Benthic Biomancer come out. I'm really surprised Augur of Bolus isn't higher up on this. It gets you those spells into your hand, but maybe people are just seeing things I'm not. Wow. Okay. I mean, I'm not opposed to cutting Augur of Bolus. I just thought, hey, look at the top 3, get a spell. But all right, 30 creatures, and I like the 30 creatures. So let's take another run back through, see if we can cut a few more cards. I mean, I guess Neoform could go. It isn't necessary. I guess it's a good piece to help, though, right? I really care more about the ramp. I guess arguably you could say Triumph could go. It's not the most necessary thing in the world, but having a win con is never a bad idea. Let's cut the Pongify. I wonder if this is the... Silk Guard, that's what it is. I feel like if there's any deck for Silk Guard, it's this deck. But plus and post gunners up to X target creatures you control, and then Aura's equipment and modified creatures gain hexproof. I feel like this is the deck for Silk Guard. So if we can't play it here, maybe we know that it's not all that great. So maybe we just gotta force it and give it a shot. I don't want it to be Brainstorm. Brainstorm seems really good and get that really quick draw off the top, especially in those first 2 turns. But maybe we can rely on maybe we can rely on ramp otherwise. Brainstorm just seems like it'd be really good, but maybe I have so much other ramp to rely, or so much other card draw to rely on. Maybe I don't need it. Man, I really want to get aggressive and cut Beast Within. That seems like a terrible idea. Beast Within seems really important. I'm going to cut the Triumph for now. As much as I've talked myself into Triumph for the Hordes, maybe it's time to try this deck without it and see if it's necessary. Library, Heuristic Study. Am I talking myself out of Heuristic Study? Maybe I'm talking myself out of Heuristic Study. Maybe this is just a list that needs to be so much more creature focused and we don't have the extra room for it. I mean, Path of Ancestry almost seems like the worst card here as well. As much as I literally feel like Path of Ancestry fits this deck, tried and true, maybe it loses its spot. Maybe there's just so much better stuff to do it for. Okay, I think it goes in the list for sure of stuff to try to bring back in. But I think it gets cut. Okay, 106. Gosh, I almost feel like this isn't a Henge deck. Does that seem crazy? Does it seem crazy to cut Henge? It just feels like it's gonna be dead. It just feels like it's gonna be really dead most of the time. Yeah, I think I'm gonna cut the Talisman as well. I don't think we're gonna have any problem with Mana Rocks. I'm almost convinced to cut this Simic Signet as well. I almost think we're not gonna need it. But the other thing is, like, what else do we cut? I love the Ozolith. I love Soul Ring because we can get it off of this. I like the Arcane Signet. I like the Throne of the God Pharaoh. I like these. These are really good. I love all of these. And I think this is where the real problem is. I don't want to cut more creatures. I feel like we're a creature deck. We need to make sure we get the creatures consistently. But what are the other three cards we cut? I mean, arguably, I could go down a utility land. I could go down to 33. I don't think we would have any problem with that. We have so much ramp. I don't think we're going to run into any problems not drawing or ramping. Does Doubling Season come out for Branching Evolution? Or does Branching Evolution come in for something? This is the hardest part to me about deck building is right exactly the spot we're in right now. We're at 103. I have to cut 3 cards from a deck that I literally cannot. I'm kind of thinking. I love the look of Harvest Season. Like, so much of me loves the look of this card, and I can see why people are playing it really highly because we're going to have a lot of tap creatures. But do I cut like an Explore or a Growth Spiral? Like, I just feel like we have so many ramp cards. Do we really need all of them? And if I were to cut the Cultivate, like, would we hurt from it? I don't think so. I think we have so much ramp and card draw anyway. Maybe this is the play because we have so much card draw at the moment, and the Sylvan Library is going to help a ton. 102. All right, so I think just like we've found ourselves in other situations where I found myself with other decks, we got to cut cards and just go for it. I think we're going to I could spend another 30 minutes looking at this list and trying to find other cards to get. So I think I just need to go for it. I'm going to cut a forest to go down to 33 there, which is where I normally see my land count, 33, 34. We have so much ramp and card draw. Bring us down to 101. And then I think we probably should cut another creature. Go down to 29 creatures. I still feel like it's enough of a mass of creatures. My gut says, is it one of the Tadiovas? Are people playing the Tadiovas that highly? Or am I forcing Tadiova into the deck because it's a Merfolk and it's also good? Yeah, see, I don't see the new Tadiova on this EDH page, which kind of just has me intrigued. Do you think it would be? It turns your lands into creatures, but maybe it's because Okay, maybe that's the cut, and we're officially down to 100. Man, I'm really excited to try this deck out. This really has me really excited. Like I said, this is a list that I've been wanting to build for a while, and I think this is the perfect place to start. We have a lot of what we want in here, and personally, what I'm going to do is cut this maybe board down to about 10 cards I think are relevant to try to cut back in. That's what I normally do when I test my decks, and then as I test this deck, kind of play with those ratios. But friends, I really like this. I hope this is something that you're interested in as well. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this list. The main reason to start this now is because, like I said, in a few sets time, we will be going back to Ixalan. And you know what? There'll probably be some new Merfolk commander that comes out and makes everyone excited about Merfolk. And heck, I hope to brew that commander when it comes out. But I'm really excited for this. While we're in kind of this weird in-between time between 40K and 40K and Brothers War, I'm going to be brewing a lot of random stuff. Next week, I'm going to do one more 40K commander, and then I'm actually pretty much going to, this could be really funny, I'm making next week Grix this week, which seems kind of interesting because I already did Abaddon. But next week's going to be Grix this week. I'm really excited. It's going to be some fun. It's not really something I normally brew, but I'm excited to push myself and try it out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.